I have created a wine list that aims at showcasing the family behind the winemaking. So
Okay.
there are a few families that are featured from Italy and France. They have literally a half a page or an entire page dedicated to them, where in a very interactive way, I try to transform the wine list into a book where you can literally take your time, read it through, learn a few things while you're reading it about the family or about wine in general, and then make your choice. I think the three most important features of a wine list are family orientated, the Peewee claim for the future, and the heritage of Bordeaux or our Bordeaux collection.
Fascinating people with stories to share, fabulous wines and the best local foods to accompany them, and beautiful places to discover and visit. All of this and more on Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast. Join me for a new episode every Tuesday. Welcome to Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on Italian Wine Podcast. Today we travel to London, to Notting Hill, to meet my guest Marco Nardi, who is wine buyer and head sommelier at the acclaimed Michelin-star restaurant, Caractère. Good morning, Marco. Thanks so much for being with us. How are you?
Good morning, Mark. How are you? All good. All good. It's not raining, which is already a positive sign. But and it's all good. All good, I
Uh,
say.
well, I'm in Devon and it is raining. It's pretty horrible day. I'm coming up to London tomorrow, so I hope
Okay.
it stays dry tomorrow. Yeah.
I hope for you.
Okay. Well, Marco, first of all, take our listeners who are located all around the world, take us all to London, to Notting Hill, and to Caractère. Share with us the story of this highly rated Michelin star restaurant that's the creation of Emily Roux and her husband Diego Ferrari.
So Notting Hill, this beautiful part of London that has been really redeveloped and rediscovered in the past 25, 30 years. And now is one of the places where you want to be in London, amongst other. But definitely Notting Hill is where you want to be today. Very classy, but not too classy, very modern. There is everything you can ask for in the food scene. And so we're very pleased to be in Notting Hill in this moment in time. About Caractère, Caractère is the first child of Diego and Emily. Was born out of an idea, I think, at the end of 2017, but it really opened the door in October 2018. And here they started basically creating a real fusion of two of the oldest and most admired food culture in the world, which is the French and the Italian. We feature a menu that is divided in trades, which is quite an innovative thing that I've witnessed that pleases customer because it allows you to choose not only in your a la carte option, but also you build your own tasting menu, which is something that I've never seen before. I worked in Michelin star before, and I worked in a restaurant that featured different tasting menu, but it was always a set tasting menu. When here you build your own. The only rule that we have is that the entirety of a table has to go for one of the menu, either a la carte or tasting menu. But really, when I see tables so pleased to be able to choose their own individually, it creates kind of a completely different vibe at the table and a completely different experience to the customer.
That is really interesting. I look forward to hearing more about that. It's an intriguing idea. I would imagine it would lead to long discussions and perhaps sometimes arguments as people want to try different things.
Absolutely. I will say that for a couple, I will say is the best menu you can give them because they can literally say, it's a 5-course tasting menu. Every trade in the menu, because the menu is divided in trades or categories, as you prefer. Every category has 2 different options, and they're like, okay, you're going to have this, and I'm going to have that. So basically, by the end of the order, they're going to try everything on the menu
Yeah.
in one night, which is, I think, one of the best things you can ask for more. Because when you want customer to experience what you're capable of, sometimes I hear correctly chefs saying, but if you go for 3 courses, you're kind of missing out on the whole picture. When here, having
Yeah.
this kind of option, you always have the entirety of the menu at your disposal, and in the 2-3 hours, depending on how long you want to be, you have the full experience. I'm not gonna lie, for the wine pairing is also great fun and a great challenge, which in fact
Yes.
I run 4 different wine pairings for different wine experience, 2 for the a la carte 3 courses and 2 for the tasting menu 5 courses, but none of them are written because very much I want to stay on the same philosophy. My question was, why if chef decided to give that kind of freedom to the customer to decide by putting himself in a bit more of trouble? Because of course, if you don't have a set tasting menu, is always about complying to what the customer will is. And also, chef is very, very good at catering for pretty much any dietary requirement, which is something that is extremely challenging for the kitchen. But I see a restaurant moving away from it, which I
Yeah.
understand. I understand the reason why. I'm not going to judge anyone. I understand the reason why. I'm just pleased that in here we can accommodate pretty much anything, if possible. With so if you're outside listening, please let us know in advance as much as possible. But we've been into a situation where we had to cater last minute, and we did that. And for the wine, is a bit the same. I have encountered customers that were like, I don't think I'm gonna have the wine pairing because I only like red wine, and I'm like, you don't have to worry about it. I'm gonna make you a full experience based solely on red wine. Obviously, you have to bear in mind that I am adapting the menu for you. So if the red wine that I'm giving you with a tuna tartare is not really the perfect pairing, you have to excuse me for that. And I see people very pleased, very, very pleased, which in fact 80% of our customers go for the wine pairing option or one of the wine pairing option, especially if they are returning customer, which is another thing that I found in this restaurant as one of the key component of a sensation that the family Roux gives you. And I tell you why I think that is different in a minute. But the fact that people, when they return, they know already that the menu is going to be adapted, that the wine pairing can be adapted. And so they just go for it happily. And they have a lot of fun having it. So they actually challenge me when they're returning customers, like, oh, what are you going to give me today? And because the wine pairing is never written, is every time a new feature. So it's a new experience and a new opportunity for the customer.
Yeah. So you've really described a restaurant that sounds completely unique in its approach and in these opportunities for the diner to be interactively directly involved both with the selection of the menus and of course the wines. Now I must mention, of course, you mentioned the family Roux. Emily, of course, is culinary royalty.
Yep.
Her grandparents, father and uncle are amongst the most well-known and celebrated chefs in the UK, most famously, of course, for Le Gavroche, which opened in 1967 and earned and held 3 Michelin stars, as well as the Waterside Inn, which has held 3 Michelin stars for 40 consecutive years. Diego spent 3 years as head chef at Le Gavroche, so
Yes.
the creation of Caractère is this must be the realization of a dream for both Diego and Emily. Is that right?
I say definitely yes, and I think the exact reason why Emily didn't take over Gavroche, as I am sure 90% of people would expect. The next step for Emily will be when her father decided to move, she will
Yeah.
take over Gavroche and continue the legacy, where she wanted to have the freedom of creating something new and something that will put her and Diego, if anything, on the map for something. So they're like, if we're going to be recognized, we're going to be recognized for our ideas, our way of
Yes.
doing. And so that's why they moved away and they opened Caractère. What I would say is particular, unique, I will use as a word, about the Roux family in general. I mean, I had the chance to engage now more often with Chef Michel, which is in his fake retired plan, let's say, because he did close Gavroche, yes, but he's way busier than he was before, at least before you knew where he was. Well, now he's always doing events or other collaboration somewhere in the world. As people, I'm sure, they follow him on social media, so they know always what he's about. But what the Roux family and Diego obviously included into it as an extension of the Roux family, they bring that kind of familiar, real familiar feel to it. Working at Caractère is the first time in my career where I work in a place where I feel part of a place, not as one of a member of a team that is on payroll. And so you have a duty, you stick to your duty, and at the end of the month, if you've done your duty well, well done. Where in here, you are part of the decision making. You're part of the discussion that happens in a very convivial manner on a daily basis. There is no the structure of let me speak with a manager, let you talk to HR. It's literally Emily needs something done or Diego needs something done. They have an idea to propose to the team. We sit down together. we discuss it, we share our input, and they take it on board. Sometimes we implement that, sometimes we implement the other. And so it really is a magical place where to work.
It sounds like a wonderful environment, working environment, but also I'm sure that comes through for the diners as well. Marco, share a little bit about your own story. How did you come to London? How did you come to being a sommelier?
So I started, I did my hospitality school or catering college in Merano in Alto Adige, where I was exposed to the discipline of the German-Italian cross kind of heritage. And that pushed me to start wanting to be international from very young. So at the age of 15, I did my first experience in Switzerland working at Palace Hotel in Gstaad. And there I understood what the sommelier really was. These kind of special forces that enters the room and changes completely the experience of the customer, and it can really make or break the night of a customer without taking anything away from the rest of the team, because absolutely the structure of F&B works only if all the mechanisms work. So it has to work like clockwise. It's not that one is more important than the other, absolutely. But I've seen this special guy and I was like, what does it take to be like you? And then I understood how difficult it is to be a guy like him. So a completely different set of skills, because unlike maybe another part of hospitality where you end your shift and you are done, you can relax. Where as a sommelier, you finish your shift, you open a book, because you have to increase your knowledge. You have to implement new skills. You have to learn more. The world of wine is continuously evolving at a very fast pace, and you have to keep up with it if you want to be at top of your game. So that kind of constant feeling of you can learn something more. Ask yourself why, when. That is what stimulates me from the age of 15 to today. And I think hopefully it will stimulate me for the next 40, 50 years.
So, as a head sommelier, then, what do you feel your main role is at Caractère, which is perhaps different from other places you've worked at for precisely the reasons you've already outlined?
I think about in here, but obviously, let's say the most important reason are being part of making the best customer experience by being involved directly into the restaurant itself. Because if someone is not having wine, I don't just write it off. I just go and help the guys in the restaurant, making sure that the experience is top notch. From a practical point of view, of course, you are responsible to make sure that your wine list says something about the place that you work for. The wine list has to have a soul. If the restaurant that you work has a specific character or a specific soul that they are sharing within the menu, you have to compulsorily try to achieve that with a wine list, which is not as easy as it sounds, but you have to be part of what the customer are looking for, and bring your way of explaining or your passion for learning about wine. You have to translate it into becoming a megaphone for the producer and explain that to the customer. Like, share the labor that the producer cannot come and share itself. You will have to come and share it with the customer, making them as attached as you are almost to what wine represents for you. So at the end of the evening, if you've done a good job, they would be so excited not only to come back, but would be so excited to go home and learn a bit more about the guy that you talked about tonight with your wine.
Yeah, sure. And I guess you're having to judge each customer to their levels of interest in wine, their preferences for certain areas, and of course, what they're eating.
Absolutely. But I also created a wine list that is a bit different from the ordinary. So, first of all, the wine list features solely Italian and French wine to stay with the heritage of a property. And also, I have created a wine list that aims at showcasing the family behind the winemaking. So
Okay.
there are a few families that are featured from Italy and France. They have literally a half a page or an entire page dedicated to them, where in a very interactive way, I try to transform the wine list into a book where you can literally take your time, read it through, learn a few things while you're reading it about the family or about wine in general, and then make your choice. I think the three most important features of a wine list are family orientated, the Peewee claim for the future, and the heritage of Bordeaux or our Bordeaux collection. Because Bordeaux, for me, is still the place, despite global warming, where patience needs to be applied when deciding to join in with a bottle of wine. And so, despite how much you want to spend, the important for me is that you get the best experience out of your bottle of wine. And I do that by managing the vintages and the aging in the cellar. I don't list anything younger than 8 years from the year that I am in. So I always count at least 8 years backwards and I start the listing, but I also try to stretch as further back as I can because I think a good bottle of wine can bring you back a great memory in life. And if I can do that while you are in the restaurant, then I'll be very pleased to have done so.
Okay, well, a few things from that, Marco. This essential core philosophy, this fusion of two great wine producing countries, two great cuisines, the French and Italian. And I'm imagining, is it a 50-50 balance on the list?
More or less, yes, absolutely.
More or less. Okay. And intrigued as well of the importance you're placing on peewee wines. Peewee, of course, the fungal resistant hybrid grape varieties that are increasingly becoming important as we experience global warming, which is changing the wine world.
It's part of what I believe. So I am very much one of these person that if you sit down in a room and you want to talk biodynamics, sustainability, organic, look at the future of wine, I will very much pleased to sit in the conversation and listen to people that know more than me, but also contribute because I do my own work. I thought Peewee was the right chance for us to also add the last triangle of representation of Caractère. Because you have the family Roux, which I think I represent in the wine list, or the legacy of family Roux, I represent in the wine list using the Bordeaux collection. So something that is iconic and it can live forever, idealistically. And then you have the family feeling that the contribution of a joining family by Diego and Emily created in this restaurant as a vibe, and so focusing on family producer. And then what we try to bring to the table, so a tasting menu in which you can choose your own, a vibe that is towards the future, and a presentation in the plate that is definitely forward thinking. And so I was like, okay, Peewee is going to be the last part of that. So I'm going to look at the future or try to get customer acquainted with what's to come in future, in my personal opinion, because it always is my personal opinion. But what else is there for customer to explore? What is new? And Peewee, I think they have nothing to envy, to have or nothing to be afraid of, to be put alongside other more blasonated wine. They just have different names, slightly different characteristics, but they can be definitely, and I'm showing that to the customer by putting them within the wine experience when the dish allows, or having it by the glass. Like people are now intrigued to buy. So
That's
yeah,
really, really intriguing. And I guess Alto Adige has been an area in Italy that's been at the forefront of Peewee. Alto Adige, Veneto are areas where we're seeing more and more of this. Is that right?
absolutely. I would say the north of Italy, first of all, for the cool climate, that most peewees, not all peewees, but most peewees that we can find nowadays, we start to see surfacing on the market, require a cooler climate. And so those areas are more suited for. Obviously, one person in particular would be Nicola Biasi, which is the person pretty much responsible for anything is peewee of quality in Italy at the moment, directly or indirectly. But what peewee represent for me is more important than the mere publicity that someone can put around. Oh, this new variety, cool. They've always been around. It's just that we didn't want to see them. When now we want to see them because we need them. And so, in a very gleeful way, I just try to bring it to the table now to try and see if I can create some enthusiasm from the customer point of view, which will then get them acquainted with wines that in 10 years' time, I think will be pretty much as easy to find 10, 15 years than a Chablis is today on UK's table.
Well, that's really, really interesting. And of course, some of these peewee varieties have been grown in the UK for many, many years.
Absolutely. That's why I said they've been around. We just decided to either close eyes onto it, or because they had a very difficult German name before, we didn't want to engage with them. When now Peewee sounds a bit more approachable, a bit more modern, if you want, and so it's easy to memorize, easy to look for, and so people will look for information. They have their own dedicated page on the wine list, and I see that is definitely possibly the page, apart from the Bordeaux collection, is the page where people spend more time reading what pewees are. I left a good explanation,
Wow.
obviously a short version of it. So anyone that wants to see it can see it either on our website. Of course, I don't mind to share the wine list on the website. So the wine list on the website is as up to date as I can remember to update it. But also when customers come to a restaurant, I see that they take their sweet time, which is very, very good to see. And then they pretty much 90% of the time always ask the question, sorry, I never heard of those variety. Can you tell me a bit more about it? And if I have a spare minute, I will. Pleasure.
Now, the structure of the menu at Character is intriguing. I've never seen this before with categories such as curious, subtle, delicate, robust, strong, greedy. This must have a great bearing on how you structure putting together your wine flights or your wine selections. Tell us about this.
So what I do is always look for the curious pairing, not the easy one. There is a textbook that tells you that there are some characteristic in the dish that you can reflect, pair, match, or go in opposition using a wine. But also to that, I have to add the fact that people come here for a reason. They come here for the experience. To make the experience, you have to have wines that are a bit out of the ordinary, not necessarily with a strange name, but maybe the person that makes it is trying to do something different. He's trying to show something different, something very personal about itself. And what's one of the criteria that I use for the wine pairing.
Marco, can you give us some examples? Can you tell us a little bit about Diego's cuisine under these different categories, say curious, subtle, delicate, or some of these categories, and a dish and a wine pairing, possibly an Italian wine pairing, since we are the
Definitely.
Italian wine podcast?
I give you the perfect one. The dish of the restaurant, or the most representative dish, that is the only one that never left the menu since the restaurant opened, and so it became the dish that represents Caractère, is the celeriac cacio e pepe. A dish that
Oh,
takes on a classical center of Italy and around the area of Rome sauce, which is cacio e pepe, so a combination of two sheep cheeses, one from Sardinia and one from Rome, so two different type of pecorino cheese, with the addition of some freshly grounded black pepper. But instead of using starch or using pasta as tradition wants you, we created a dish by using celeriac, the root vegetable that we treat in order to be able to shape it like a tagliatella pasta, and
oh
then
my.
use that instead, which leaves the dish lighter, crunchier, funkier. And then we complete that at the table with balsamic vinegar aged for 12 years. This creates a perfect combination of sweet and savory that the palate goes wild for. And to pair with that, I use a Sicilian wine, of all things, made by a winery called Terre Amare, the owner of which is Fabrizio Di Pasquale. And it's a wine that takes his roots in the heritage of Sicily. The vines are old vine from 130 years old of Catarratto grape. And the wine is made 90% from the harvest, the current harvest 2024, and 10% perpetual method. This creates
Oh,
a
okay.
completely bone dry wine that has a incredible multi-layer capacity. And this kind of takes away some of the savoriness almost from the dish at first bite, but also it goes very playfully and very elegantly to play with the sweetness brought by the balsamic vinegar. So I thought the combination of the two, in my mind, had to work. And then when I tested on customer, it just became the favorite pairing that the customer are having at the moment.
That sounds amazing. And I love your description of the dish and also your description of the wine. So, this catarato, did you say partly made in perpetuum, the old fashioned style pre fortification for Marsala, this
Yes,
dynamic aging?
yeah, you can call it as the grandfather, in very miniature version, you can call it the grandfather of Marsala.
Yeah, great, amazing. Give me another dish and another wine pairing because it's really really interesting for us to be able to get a feeling for Diego's cuisine as well as your approach to the wines to bring this experience together.
I will go for a dessert just to leave people just before lunch thinking about the dessert already. Our chocolate dessert. So you'll be presented in front of you with a chocolate dome with a beautiful decoration on top. And then when you go through it or try to go through it with your spoon, you discover that there is an underworld of flavor under that. They include, and not limited to, also different consistency on the palate. We have hazelnut ice cream, we have caramel, we have the crunchiness brought by different consistency of chocolate. We also have brownie. So all of those consistency or match on the palate in one mouthful. And to pair with that, for that I go very traditional this time, or at least one of the favorite pairing of a customer at the moment is to go very traditional with a Chateau Sudureau from Sauternes from 2016 vintage, because the kind of caramelly-ish sensation is what I'm building on for the customer, because that kind of Sauternes is not as saffrony as someone would expect some Sauternes are. This one is more caramelly, mostly because of the age, the botrytis involvement. And so this semillon becomes an integral part of the dessert on the palate. And again, it very playfully expresses itself alongside. So it's like, in this pairing, I think most customer tells me that the wine and the food were trying to kind of fight for a space on your palate. Everyone wanted to be a bit more than the other, which was a playful game for the palate and for the experience.
Well, that's intriguing. I would not have thought that a great Sauterne would be able to pair with dark chocolate, but I can see with the way you've described that this would be a really, really interesting interplay of flavors because of the richness and concentration of both.
It's more about what is under. What I learned working especially alongside Diego and Emily is that never judge a dish at face value. Always look at all the components,
Hmm.
even the
Yeah,
micro herbs, the flowers. In French cuisine, the saucing as well. Like, judge everything as a complex, and then build on traits that you think are more individually suited to be elevated. And for the
sure.
dessert, caramel and hazelnut is definitely one of the traits that I think should be elevated, and so that's why Sauterne is revealing itself to be an incredible pairing for.
Well, really, really interesting. Now, do you have a large selection of wines available by the glass so that you were able to have this palette of flavors to work with when people are piecing together their own tasting menus?
Absolutely. At the moment, between the Coravan selection and the regular by the glass, if you wish, we have about 30 wines, which in the grand scheme of London is not enormous. But for what the size of a restaurant is, and for what I see customer needing when they go for the option of a by the glass, I see it as a very playful for the customer, and they engage very well with the opportunity to say, if I want to build my own sort of wine experience, I can do from sparkling to rosé, white, red, amber, or orange, as they are known today. But amber is the definition that I prefer, and sweet wines, without forgetting fortified alongside it, like Barolo Chinato, for example.
Ah, of course. It seems to me, in a way, that to not choose the wine flights and the wine pairings, do people buy by the bottle still, or they really would be missing out by not having the opportunity to taste many flavors over the course of a multi-course meal that is also exciting and going in very, very different directions.
I think it goes down to two main reasons. So first of all, if I have to put it down in numbers, the ratio at the moment is 80% of customers go for one of the wine experiences and 20% go for bottle or glass. If I have to put it down in numbers, where if I have to try and find the reason why people do that, I will say that one can be the option. Because when you look at the menu and there is one menu and one wine option, and you're like, okay, am I going to have it or not? Where you look at the menu, you can build your menu, and you have up to 4 different wine experiences. You're like, okay, but there's a lot of choice here. And also, I don't restrict them to which experience. So on the same table, you can have 3 different wine experiences if you want, which, yes, I know I complicate my life, but I never wanted it easy anyway. But these creates an enormous amount of pleasure in the customer in saying, oh, let's see what guy is going to come up with, is my wine going to be better than yours? So it creates a very playful environment, and that's, I think, is one other reason why people tend to go for the wine experience rather than the bottle. They see the bottle almost as a limiting factor
Yes.
to what they can have without taking away from the pleasure of sharing your own bottle. And also, it goes both ways for tourists or locals returning customer. It goes the same way. Even the tourist first time that comes from the other side of the world, I see them going for the wine experience most of the time because they have so many options. And so they're like, where I used to go usually is very high end, even more high end than we are, for example, like 3 Michelin-star restaurant. But I'm put in front of maximum 2 options. And so either I go for one of them or I might as well go for my bottle. Where because I can choose one, my wife can choose another, my son can choose another. And you're like, why not? Let's all
Yeah,
play a
sure.
game and go for it.
Play a game. That's a good
Yeah,
way
play a
to
game.
describe it. It does seem that Diego's cuisine is the structure of the way the restaurant's been created is playful and inviting the diner to really have an enjoyable and fun experience. And you're doing the same with wine. Marco, you've really given a good introduction to Caractère in Notting Hill. It sounds a wonderful place. I look forward to visiting when I'm next in London and look forward to meeting you then. But in the meantime, I just want to thank you for being our guest today. It's been a real pleasure hearing about your background, hearing about this wonderful restaurant, and I'll look forward to meeting you again soon. Thank you
Oh,
very much for being with us today.
thank you for your time. Thank you for wanting to know more about this amazing restaurant that I work for. But I'm glad now more people, all the people that listen to your podcast, maybe will be discovering it. So thank you very much for inviting me to your great podcast, which I follow all the time. So for people that don't follow it, please follow them because it's a great podcast. And thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you, Marco. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
We hope today's episode of Wine, Food and Travel with me, Marc Millon, on the Italian Wine Podcast has transported you to somewhere special. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your pods. Likewise, you can visit us at italianwinepodcast.com. Until next time, chin chin.